section. Fuck. Talk about Whoop. I need to get my Whoop charger off Nick. We're good? We're live? $150 for the hat. Not enough. Do you know these actually cost a lot of money to make because they're new era hats and you have to pay whatever a new era hat is, 80 or $90, and then we have to go and get them sign written. Hey, Tricky, can you please bring me in your Whoop charger, please, bro? My Whoop's been dead for 3 days. I forgot. All right, let's rock and roll. Nice beard. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, so what we're going to do first is we're going to talk about some of the new legislation or new property things in... You are a good man. Thank you. I've been thinking about... I keep forgetting. Whoop's on charge now. Good stuff. All right, so let's talk about the new first home buyer scheme that's come into effect. 1 October, which is roughly, 29 days ago now. And it's been a big change to the market. We have seen a massive shift in the marketplace literally within the first 30 days in terms of buyer sentiment all across the markets that we buy in. So I can draw on this, yeah, Joel? Cool, and then we just have to get a new piece when I'm doing other stuff, right? So the new first home buyer scheme, it consists of a few things. So we'll do the top 3 things that it consists of. Obviously, it is a 5% deposit, which means you only need 5% to go and buy a property. Some people think this is really good. Some people think this is not so good. The people who think it's not so good, I would challenge to say, well, if that's not good, what is a better alternative? Because how else can people get into the marketplace? Generally, the biggest restriction for people is the deposit amount. So 5% deposit. Inside of every state, there are different purchase prices that you can go up to. The more expensive cities and states obviously have a higher purchase price. In Sydney, it's about $1.5 million. Obviously, cheaper states, it's a lower purchase price. But I guess the awesome thing about this is you need 5% and...
It's just going to be upside down for the moment. I'm just trying to figure
What's upside down? I'm upside down. Fuck yeah.
No, the paper.
Oh, right. We can fix that.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure it out. Just letting you know.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's fine. It just means that is... What does that say? That is a 3% deposit. 5 upside down looks like 5, doesn't it? Where was I at? 5% deposit. Oh, yeah. So you obviously only need 5% deposit for cash. So let's assume that you buy a property for $1 million.
The piece of paper is upside down.
Yeah, I know. I get that. I get the piece of paper's upside down. All right, the fucking piece of paper. This is the first YouTube live we're doing. For you people on the Instagram live, you'll be fine. Please save the link so we can watch it. It'll be on my YouTube channel. So should we try and fix this first?
Yep.
Is it this camera or that camera?
It's that one.
Oh, let's just fix it. There's no rush. We can.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think about it.
Wonder why that is happening. Oh, because when we record, you switch it around, right?
Mm-hmm. Maybe just for now,
just talk. Yeah, cool. 5% deposit. Yes. Yeah, obviously the 5% thing. Big thing. Fuck. So we're back on track now, folks. All right. Great scheme. 5% is all you need. The thing that a lot of people don't, I guess, understand about it is you still need, if you go above the purchase prices or the stamp duty purchase price caps, you will still need to pay stamp duty. In New South Wales, the full exemption is at $800,000 as a max purchase price, and then it tiers up from $800 to $900. In Queensland, it's obviously different. In Victoria, it's obviously different. But if you stay under $800,000 in New South Wales, you don't pay any stamp duty as well, which, is then a $40K saving. The second awesome thing about this new scheme is there is no income cap, which means you can literally earn $60,000 a year, or you can earn $600,000 a year when you still qualify for the scheme. That is obviously a very, very good thing. Lower income earners are probably still going to struggle even with this scheme. But for people who are on higher incomes, they will... Fuck yeah, Joel. Maybe I'll just talk to the... is there anyone on the YouTube?
Yeah.
Oh, you don't know? Oh, there is. Cool.
Keep going, mate. I'll fix it.
No income caps, big thing. And then on top of that, we have Let me get this out of here. This is what happens, folks. You try things and then you work out how they work. Just so in New South Wales, it is up to 1.5 million as a max purchase price. But if you go up to the 1.5 million, you then pay full stamp duty. So you'd need more than a 5% deposit, because you need 5% for the deposit, which is 75,000. But then you'll also need to pay the stamp duty on the $1.5 million purchase, which again is roughly 70 grand ish. So you'll actually need $140,000. So that's what, there is a little bit of a misunderstanding there. To get the full exemption of stamp duty as well, you'll have to cap it at $800,000. You are the top G of property. Thank you. Thank you. Is that better?
No, it's still...
Oh, fuck it. Let's just leave it. Who cares? At least we know next time.
Well, this one's still getting you.
Okay, cool. And then we can move that camera to here, right?
Yeah.
Like in the next one? Or I can sit... No, but if I sit over there, then it'll still be cooked.
We'll figure it out for next time. But for now, just talk to this one.
Cool. No income caps. There's still the stamp duty caps that you have to stay within, obviously. And then, obviously, the third and final thing is you can combine with your partner or, friend or whatever it is, and you generally, let's assume that you go with a partner, for example. As an individual, you only need to really save 2.5%, and your partner needs to have 2.5%, or maybe you're going with a sibling and you can save 2.5% of the deposit. They save 2.5%, you combine it, and you get into the market. So you can combine your salaries or income. Cool. That's the really big one for first time buyers. That's the real big legislation change. There is another legislation change which it's not really a change, but it is a change. It is a change, and it's around land tax. So inside of New South Wales recently, what has happened is generally land tax every year increases, the threshold increases. So, this year it will be $1,075,000, and then next year it might be 1.1 million. So the threshold increases as the value of land increases. They've actually frozen the land tax threshold for 2 years, which means if the value of general values land up, land that may have been under the threshold last year, maybe over the threshold this year. Not a massive change, but it is an interesting one. That a lot of people wouldn't have picked up on. So here we go. Do you invest in commercial property? Absolutely. I just bought one the other day for just over $7 million. Victorian buy price. That is a great question. I think it's around $800,000 to $900,000. I can confirm that. Would you buy in Toowoomba? Probably not. Here we go. Jack, I want to invest in property. I'm at 18 years old. I don't want to go with a 5% deposit just because you have to live in the property for 6 months and I can't afford that. What should I do? Well, that's a bit of a debacle you're in, right? Well, the third thing that I said in these top 3 list was you can combine incomes with a sibling. So maybe you have a sibling or a friend that you can combine incomes with. But just remember, if you have to live in the property for 6 months, you don't have to have the whole thing to yourself. You can go and rent out bedrooms. So let's say that you buy a 3-bedroom property, you rent out 2 of the rooms and you occupy 1 of the rooms. You should be able to afford it. Generally, the bank wouldn't lend you the money if they didn't think you were able to afford it. So there you go. Ipswich, good area. It's not as cheap as it used to be, unfortunately. Like really $800,000. Cool. So this drawing thing doesn't really matter now, does it?
No.
Cool. Well, I was going to draw out some structuring things, but that's not really relevant right now.
We can just go straight to the Q&A.
Yeah, let's just go straight into the Q&A. Cool. All right. But I will draw. Is that actually still recording as recording?
I can set it to record.
Yeah, then at least I can write some shit out as we're getting Q&A and we can make good content out of it. Cool. All right. So this suit is black. Pause. Nah. All right. So we have a question right here from Ricky that says, Can you have a lender assess you and your wife and therefore have better borrowing power, but as the wife is not Australian, only the Australian on titles, do lenders play in this space? So essentially the question Ricky is asking is, Ricky's obviously PR. and a citizen. Wife is not. Can a lender assess you and your wife and therefore have better borrowing power? It depends. Like you definitely can use foreign income to buy property, right? That's how people like expats buy property. So from a borrowing point of view, you should be able to use both the incomes. And if she's not on the title, then you shouldn't have any issues with foreign ownership. You need to speak with an expat broker who specializes in that space specifically. We have a guy we work with who's an expert in. His name is Jeremy Harbour. If you email me, jack@henderson.com.au, I'll be able to help with that. The next question is, mate, who are your favourite second and third tier lenders? What are the highest interest rates you think the average punter should get up to? So it's a good question. I will do this graph for you guys. Okay, so let's say that we have, I'm just going to use round numbers. So let's say we've got $1 million. $1 million here. That is with lender number one, and lender number one offers us a 5.5% interest rate. Let's say we then go to a second tier lender that gives us a 6% interest rate, but they'll give us a bump up in borrowing capacity. They'll give us 1.25 million. And then let's say that we go to like the extreme, we're going to be paying 7%. This might be with like a Latrobe or something like that, a low doc facility. But on that facility, let's say that they then lend us $1.5 million. So 5.5% rate, major lender, they'll lend us $1 million, 6% rate at 1.25 million. That might be a second tier lender, but still a full doc loan. And then a 7% low doc loan with a non-bank lender. They'll lend us $1.5 million. So obviously there is a cost associated with each of this debt. Now, because we are borrowing different amounts, the repayments will obviously differ. But if we said here, we're going to be paying $55,000 a year in interest. This one we're going to be paying 72. Let's say roughly 75,000 a year in interest, and then here we're going to be paying $105,000 in interest. Okay, so 5.5%, 55,000 in interest, but we've got $1 million property. 6%, 1.25, we're going to be paying $75,000 a year. 7% interest on a $1.5 million loan, we'll be paying $105,000. Now, if we just assumed that all of these properties grew at 7% per annum, which is around about the Australian average, essentially, they all cost more. So we're going to assume that you can service the debt, but obviously growth on a larger asset base over a long period of time should make you more money. Now, remember, this is not financial advice. This is just Jack dribbling. So $1 million property over that same period of time goes from being worth 1 mil to 2 mil. Mate, these textures are really good. A $1.25 million property goes from being worth 1.25 million to 2.5 million dollars, and then a $1.5 million property, no surprises there, is worth $3 million over that same period of time. Okay, it's assuming property all grows at the same dollar value. Now, over that same period of time, we have our holding costs, and I'm just going to assume no rental income. Okay, we're just going to factor in holding costs. So 10 years at 105,000, that is $1,050,000. So 1050 minus rent. 75,000 is 750. Well, I fucked that up. 750, cool. And then 55,000 is $550,000. Now, if you look at what it's cost us versus what it's earned us, in this scenario, the net number is 2 million minus the 550. We end up with $1.45 million net. In the next scenario, we had 2.5 million. We need to minus our 750, so we end up with $1.75 million net, which means we are about $300,000 up from our initial example. And then on our last example, we're paying a 7% rate. We end up with $3 million total minus our $1,050,000. We end up with $1.95 million total, which then brings us up another $200,000 on the one below at a $1.25 million purchase price. So as you can see, obviously rates are one part of the equation. That is the cost of the debt. But if we can get a better quality asset, assuming we have the deposit for that, even though it will cost us more to own, it should make us more over the long run. And then if we look at our overall net numbers, we end up much better off by spending more on property, assuming you can service the debt and all the rest of it. So essentially, don't just focus on rate, focus on what that rate will allow you to go and buy. I can assure you I have had some horrendous interest rates with second tier and non-bank lenders. So there you go. Here we go. Good afternoon, Jack. Just bought a house with a guarantor at 750. How much cash would you build up in an offset account? Is there a guidance, or what percentage would you aim for? So it's an interesting one. It really depends on your risk appetite. And remember, I'm not a financial advisor, but in terms of cash, you want to have enough cash in your offset account or in your savings account, whatever you want to call it, to make sure that you can live your life if something was to happen. Now, all of your cash should sit in your offset account against your owner-occupier property or not your non-deductible debt. So as you are continuing to accumulate cash, it should be sitting in your offset account. This is another really good one to talk about. So let's say that we have a $1 million, this is our loan right here. Okay. And over here is our offset account. So we have our loan of $1 million and we have our offset account. And let's assume that we are saving 10 grand a month, just so we keep it all round. We want to have all of our 10,000s going into our offset account. And even if we were paying minimum payments on this $1 million loan, or maybe it was an interest only loan, who knows? You want to have all your money go into your offset account, and essentially every single month that goes from 10K to 20K to 30K. And essentially what happens is, because you get more and more money sitting here in your offset account, you're paying less and less interest here on your loan, which means more and more money in the offset, less and less interest, more and more money in the offset, less and less interest. And that's essentially what you should do. So it's not like having a minimum amount of money is, or a maximum amount of money, I should say, in your offset account is the important thing. But let's say you then get to a point where you've got 200 grand in your offset account and the loan on the property is still $1 million. Essentially what we would do, instead of just pulling this $200,000 out of the offset to go and buy a new property and use that cash, and then essentially what we would do is pull the cash out. We'd have less debt on the investment property, assuming we bought something for $1 million, we'd only have $800,000 worth of debt. But now we would have just increased the loan amount on our owner-occupier property from being essentially $800,000 or paying interest on $800,000 back to $1 million. So we're essentially decreasing the debt on tax-deductible investment debt, and we're increasing the debt on non-deductible owner-occupier debt. So instead of doing that and buying a new investment over here, essentially what we want to do is we want to use that 200 to actually smash down that loan, pay it off, bring that loan down to 800K. And then what we do is we do a refinance, cash out the $200,000 as a separate loan split. So here, and then we have $200,000 of equity. And then when we use that equity for a purchase, the interest on that equity then becomes tax deductible. And that's what debt recycling is.
Before we go on to the next one, I'm going to move this. We'll just try and have it on an angle.
God bless. Let's do that. All right. Jack the Squiggles. All righty. Just for everyone on Instagram, this is a YouTube live. I'm just going live on Instagram to try and, encourage everyone to go across to YouTube. All right, Luke. I aim to renovate the house, flooring, paint, bathroom upgrade. How would you go about saving for this? You can obviously use cash to save and do the work gradually over time. Or what you can do is you can wait for the property to grow in value and then use some of the equity, release it, and use that to do the works on the property. So it really depends. Mr. Shane Finch, is there risk going moving all properties with one lender for lower rate with no cross collateralization? As long as they're not cross collateralized, there's no real risk. It really depends on how much that's going to save you. So there's two things that I focus on when I'm refinancing properties. The main one is not interest, it is the valuations. So I generally want to go with the bank that's going to give me the strongest valuations, because that's what's going to give you the most equity to release out of the property. And even if I don't use that equity and put it in offset, it gives me the most amount of buffer. So that's the first thing I focus on, is who's going to give me the best valuations. And most of the time, it's not the same bank on all properties. Some banks will value a property higher than another bank. And then obviously the second thing is serviceability. Who's going to give me the strongest servicing? So rate is one thing. What's the process of turning a first home buyer property with government guarantor under the new scheme into an investment property, and how soon can you do this? Seems more difficult now. I wouldn't say it's more difficult. So there's two things, I suppose. You have the stamp duty and the state revenue that comes from, state revenue, whether that's New South Wales state revenue or whether that's Queensland state revenue. They obviously have their rules, because if you don't pay stamp duty, you're not paying stamp duty because you're a first home buyer. And then you have the bank rules of the 5% and the government guarantee of the other 15. So the way that you remove the government guarantee is either have your property at an 80% loan to value ratio, which that could happen within a year if you buy a property well and you get a good valuation, maybe you renovate it, whatever it is, and you can remove the government guarantee, which then removes you away from the first home buyer rules from the government. And then you have the other side, which is the stamp duty, which comes in from office of whatever state in their revenue office. And they will have other things, which may be, you must live in the property for, 12 months or something like that. So it's generally not all that difficult to get away from it, and you usually can do it within, a 12-month period. Some of these refinance deal options simply don't add up with extravagant fees, including application fees, ongoing charges. It would take me another 12 months just to break even. I guess it depends what you are looking at, to be honest. And it depends the lender. Like, obviously non-banks have fees associated with it, but it's generally not all that much. You might have a risk fee of 0.5% or 1% or something like that, but I haven't been too scared by them. You just get on with life. All right. For anyone on Instagram, YouTube is the place to be. What would your approach to scaling further when you've maxed out your borrowing? Currently own 4 properties. Sydney, you have 2, 100% jointly with my mum, and majority positive cash flow. What would your approach to further scaling when you're maxed out on borrowing? Yeah, so when you're maxed out on borrowing, there's a few approaches. One of them people don't really like, which is go and make more money. So let me draw you. Hey, look at that. Okay, that's good. So let me draw this scenario out for you. 4 properties. I'm not going to include the joint thing with mum. Let's just assume 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and look, I'm gonna pretend that all of these properties have 500k of debt, which means total debt is 2 mil. Okay, you got $2 million of debt. It's scattered across multiple properties, and you're maxed out from a borrowing capacity point of view. So what we could do is we could sell down 2 assets. Generally, you would sell the worst assets, I would say, and I'm just going to assume no fees and charges and CGT and all the rest of it, just for illustrative purposes, because it'll get too complicated. So we cash out. Let's say we sell these properties for $1 million, and we cash out 500 grand of profit. Same thing, 500 grand of profit, and we get rid of this debt. We then use that 500 grand of profit to go and clear these properties. So now these are worth 1 million a piece. 1 million a piece, and they're debt free, and $1 million property is probably bringing you in, let's say, fucking 40 grand a year each. So they're bringing you in 80k of income. Okay, now that 80k has no repayments because they're debt free, but you now have $2 million worth of assets as opposed to $4 million worth of assets, but you've still got the same $2 million of net equity because you had $4 million of assets and you had $2 million of debt, which gave you the 50% LVR. So that obviously clears your borrowing, or that clears the debt, and would take you back to max borrowing capacity, assuming you have no other debts. Now, obviously that doesn't help the situation if you are still this man here, and this man here is earning, let's say he's earning 200 grand a year per year, This guy is going to be able to borrow, I would say, about, with rental income, probably around $1 million. Different banks, different amounts of money. But let's say he borrows $1 million. If you then went and bought another property in your personal name and you paid $1 million for it and you financed 100%, you are back in the same scenario, right? Because you've just used your full $1 million borrowing capacity to buy another $1 million property. You had $2 million of unencumbered assets. You've now got a $1 million property that is fully debt, or all debt, I should say. And you've got $3 million worth of assets, 2 with no debt, 1 with debt or full debt, and you're in the same position. So ideally, if you want to continue to scale your portfolio, that is an ineffective approach. So what I have done, and now I don't have a serviceability issue now because obviously the income is reflective of it, but let's assume that we put this property within an entity, and this was ring fenced, meaning that it was in an entity, whether it be a company or a trust structure. Remember, get your own advice on this. I'm just talking purely a strategy that I use. That property would be negatively geared. I would say if that property is also getting, 40 grand a year in rent, it's probably costing 60 grand a year, so it's got a $20,000 negative cash flow element on it. But we've got $80,000 up here, so we would use 20,000 out of that 80,000 to cash flow this property. Over time, the rent will increase. That will then obviously allow this property to start paying for itself, and we wouldn't need to use any of that $80,000 worth of income. But there is $80,000 sitting there that we could pay for this property with. Then, because that property is not costing you anything, and the shortfall is being paid for through the rental income, you're still earning your $200,000 a year, and because you've now protected your borrowing capacity and you've got asset protection with the trust, you can essentially do the same thing again. Set it up, entity, and $1 million. Okay, and then let's assume it's the same scenario. This property costs you 20 grand a year. You've used 20 grand from your 80, which means there's 60 left over. You could then fund that with the other 20,000, which would give you $40,000 left over, et cetera, et cetera. And you could do this, essentially 4 times if they all cost $20,000 each, and you'd then have $6 million worth of assets versus $4 million worth of assets up here. And they'd all be paid for through the rental income that the unencumbered 2 were paying for. All right, so that is that scenario. I don't even know who asked that question, but that was a long-winded way to answer that. So that is how you can essentially free up your borrowing capacity, sell down some properties, eliminate all the debt in your personal name if you can. That will then take you back to max serviceability, assuming you have no other debt. And then this is a strategy that works to help maximize your borrowing capacity, but it's not for everyone. Okay, so get your own advice on that because this is just what I do. Cool. All right. Next one. I should be able to roll this one over. Next one is thoughts on Tagum. It's a good area. I'm assuming you mean Tagum in Brizzy. All right. These take a lot of energy. Like, I get real fired up. Best ROI renovations, bathroom versus kitchen. Thanks, Jack. I don't know. There's no one rule of thumb for that, to be honest, because renovations and getting them revalued then by a valuer is subjective to the valuer. When we renovate, we generally do the whole thing. So we'll do paint, flooring, electrical, which is like downlight switches and all that type of shit. Basic landscaping, kitchen, bathrooms, and that's what makes a big difference. What happened to that challenge you were doing to buy a home on a normal strategy? It's a very good question. So what happened was I didn't think about my life when I said I'll do that strategy. And then I did it for a week while I was in the office in Sydney. And then I realized, I live a life which is reflective of me running a business with 100 people all over the country. So it wasn't a fucking challenge that I should have said I would do because I can't do it on my life. But what I'm going to do to make up for it, it's already started, is Monty, who is in our team. He is 18 years old on Saturday, and we're going to save for his first deposit. He's already saving for it. He's been working with us now for a couple of months. We're going to save for his deposit on that income because he has none of the life shit that I have going on. So there you go. Thoughts on eastern suburbs, apartments, large one bed as first home, investment purchase, large investor, percentage owner, opposite. I wouldn't buy a one bedder in the eastern suburbs personally. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, my first apartment was a 1.5 bedder. They sold it as a 2 bedder, it was a 1.5 bedder in the eastern suburbs. You can get much better though. Thoughts on Central Coast? We're big fans of the Central Coast marketplace. We think the mid part of the Central Coast has the most value. So places like Toukley, a lot of value there. You're buying sub $1 million, good blocks of land, and you're obviously within sort of an hour and a bit to Sydney. Have you heard of this new lending policy? Can move personal debt into trust without having to change the title, hence not triggering CGT and stamp duty. Yeah, look, it's not a new policy. That's been around for a while. It's not just that simple, I can assure you. So speak to a broker about that, but it's not that simple. $100,000 deposit, earn $115 per year. Better to buy 5% PPOR or investment property. You probably won't be able to buy an investment property with $100,000 per year. So I'd probably do the 5% owner-occupier if it was me. Hey Jack, do you believe in renovating a locked garage brings value to the unit when being reevaluated? It seems like evaluations are made online, so no proof of the work. Yeah, not really. No proof. If you get an in-person valuation, obviously they're going to look at things that a normal value, and desktop valuer won't, because desktop valuers don't go out and value it. But yeah, generally wouldn't add that much money. Spot on with personal income and scenario. I didn't know that proper. Yeah, viable. Well, there you go. That's why I'm doing these lives now. Keep the questions coming through on YouTube. All right, let me just... I shouldn't just throw that phone. That's Joel's phone. Yeah, thanks for letting us use your phone, Joel. I'll just fucking throw it there for you, mate. No worries. All right. Mate, are you excited for a new office in a big studio where it's not like as small as a shoebox? All right, look at that. Alrighty, questions. Thoughts on rooming house strategy. My thoughts on the rooming house strategy is it's very good for cash flow, obviously, because, you buy a residential asset. Let's assume it's got 6 to 8 rooms in it. You rent out per room versus the whole property, and your rental yield is much higher. Now, the downside to the rooming house strategy is that your future buyer will be an investor. Because why is an owner-occupier ever going to buy a rooming house to live in, right? It's not going to happen. So when you sell to an investor buys the property likely how you are buying the property, which is based on a yield. Which means, they're not going to go and buy a rooming house at a 2% rental yield. They want to buy a rooming house at a 5% rental yield. So your growth is likely not going to be as strong as an owner-occupier property or a property that appeals to an owner-occupier buyer. But, and there is a but, what we have done in the past is, let me draw a house for you. Ready, Joel? This is going to be my house. So, this is Jack's house, or Jack's client's house. All right? When you have, that is terrible. So, when you have an existing house like this, which all they've done is convert the inside of it to a rooming house. So let's say that this is going to be, okay, that's the front of the house, just an FYI, and this is now the floor plan. So that is the door. You come in here like this, here it is, hallway, and you have rooms. Let's assume this is a little, yeah, cool, and this is like a living area. So bedroom 1, bedroom 2, bedroom 3, bedroom 4, and this is the existing floor plan of a house, and they've just turned the existing floor plan into what is now allowed to be a rooming house. Now they've got the approvals, tick for approvals, and they've used an existing owner-occupier home. So they now get an increase in yield because instead of maybe renting this house out for $800 a week, they might rent each room out for $350, $400 a week, right? Which would give them $1,600 of rental income. So during the time of ownership, you can hold this, get the increased rental income. It's amazing, helps you pay down the debt faster, etc., etc. But then when you go and sell the property in the future, you don't want to sell it as a rooming house. You want to sell it as a home that appeals to the owner-occupier demographic. So then you can reconfigure it. So for example, you'd still have it as a 4-bedroom place, but you'd have bedroom 3 here, the other bedroom here, and then this one, you'd make this then open plan living. So you'd sell it then back to an owner-occupier, so it'd be like 4 bedrooms as you walk in, then kitchen, living, dining, all this shit out here. That is the ideal scenario. We recently bought one of these in Brisbane, which is that exact thing. It's an older Queenslander style home, and then it's been converted into a boarding house. It has the approvals in place, so it's legally allowed to do that. Incredible rental income in comparison to a standard 4-bedroom, Queenslander in this suburb in Brisbane. And then in the future, we would renovate it back to a normal house, which would then increase the value of the property and the saleability of the property. So there you have it, folks. That is my thoughts on rooming houses. All right, what would you do as a 19-year-old who earns between 130 to 140 grand? First thing, well done on earning that much money as a 19-year-old. That's more than I was earning. And currently renting for quite cheap at $400 a week. Well, what I would do is I would make sure that any dollar above that 400 that is not utility, like food and shelter, which shelter is the 400, you save and then start investing that money, right? Because if you're earning that type of dough as a 19-year-old, I can assure you when you get to 29 and 39 and 49, you're going to be so happy if you do the right thing with that money as opposed to the wrong thing with that money. Because all of the fun, cool shit you think is cool now that you waste money on, in 10 years' time, you won't remember it. Guarantee it. I remember very little about when I was 19, other than really big things, right? Like maybe a holiday you went on with a friend or whatever it is. So be smart with your money because your future self will thank you about it. Ain't that right, Joel? Fuck yeah. All right, Ben, how do you earn that much at 19? Oh, I can't answer that question because I don't know. Maybe he works in the mines, in construction, maybe, I don't know. All right, thoughts on $500,000 to $600,000 purchase in Ballarat. I mean, you're going to get what $500,000 to $600,000 buys you, right? The reason it's that price is because it's underperformed. So we wouldn't buy it. So if that's the question, I wouldn't buy it. Do I think it's going to perform over 5 years? I think what will happen over the next 5 years, and it's already happening, is investors will drive the growth. And what happens when investors drive growth in markets is that it is not sustainable growth. So happens short term, investors move out of the marketplace, the growth subsides, and you generally have a pullback. Generally don't want to be there. So we stay away from it. We want to be in owner-occupied dominated markets. Tone advisor, doing a lot of work, 12 hours a day, 6 to 7 days a week. Well done. Can you tell us what you do to earn that sort of money? I would be interested to know. Cool. I'm going to go to Instagram now for questions. Instagram. Here we go. What are your thoughts on the apartments in the Belmore area in Sydney? Probably wouldn't buy them there. There's lots of them. Also Instagram. I'm live on YouTube right now. It's on my story, so that's a much better place for questions. Budget, would you recommend investing in Newcastle, reno, and dwelling? In Newcastle now, to buy something that you can add a second dwelling to in reno, like you really need to be at that like $800 to $1 million price point. Gone are the days where you could buy things at 800 grand. What's your thoughts on New Zealand? I don't know anything about the property market in New Zealand, but what I do know about New Zealand is I've been there 3 times, and I've been to Auckland. I've been to, where did the earthquake happen? Christchurch, and I've been to Queenstown. And Queenstown is the only good place there. So that's what I know. The minimum you'd need to work with us on our accelerator strategy, you'd probably need like 400 grand in equity, I would say. Portion of that would be used for deposit and costs on a property, and the rest would be used for value add. All right. Whoa, my phone's fallen. Here we go. I got greedy and I bought a 7. Don't buy in Gladstone, Townsville, and Rockhampton. GK Knight Rider who asked that question. Go to the Property Couch podcast. Ben Kingsley and Bryce Holdaway, legends. Very different to me. They're very conservative and softly spoken. So they just did a recent episode which I've listened to on Townsville v Brisbane. Exceptional. After you listen to it, it'll make you never want to buy in regional locations like that again. All right, Charletevo 16 said, I got greedy and bought a $750,000 property in booming Albanavale. I don't even know where the fuck that is. So there you go. 3.5% yields, can't build a granny. What would you do to hold on to the holding cost? I'd probably sell it. Sorry. Jack, Randy Footlong here. Fuck yeah, Randy. How do I stop the bank putting it under commercial lending so the equity can be pulled? Well, the bank's only going to put something under commercial lending if it is commercial lending. If it is a standard residential dwelling, they will not put it under commercial lending. So it must be a commercial asset, I'm assuming. Yeah. What about Lithgow? Probably not. Rooming house I'm talking about. Oh, rooming house. Yeah, well, that's right, because a rooming house is not a standard residential asset. It is looked at as a commercial asset. And because of that, you have to get commercial lending. And generally what that means also is your loan to value ratio is lower. The name of the podcast is The Property Couch. So when Jack Henderson was a young whippersnapper, I used to listen to The Property Couch religiously. I was actually on The Property Couch, if you want to hear. I think I was like 21, 22. If you look me up, I was on there. But it was like the OG property investing podcast. They're super smart guys. Been investing for a long time. Ben Kingsley's really big broker. And it's really good. So you should listen to it. So there you go. I'll send my invoice, Ben and Bryce, for the plug. Corio, Geelong. Yep, I'd invest there. Perth looking the goods yet? I don't know. I don't really spend that much time on Perth, if I'm honest. It's definitely not looking as good as fucking Bronte where I live. So, hey Jack, I have a unique sitch. I'm assuming that means situation. Currently paying $40,000 rent on a commercial shed. Do you think it's worth upping our PPR debt and buying a place with space to put a shed on and bring the cash back into the fam? Well, you're not really bringing the cash back into the fam, because to go and build the shed, you've got debt, right? So the money's not going to you, it's going to the bank. Now, obviously, you will be able to get an increase in value of the property, I'm assuming. And, you know, eventually when that debt's paid down, that will be your income. So, yeah, I mean, if you don't have to rent a space and you can own it, it's much better. So that's why I have slowly bought all of the premises that we work out of, is because I'm paying rent. It's likely going to be an ever-increasing rent as the business gets bigger and the people, you know, we have more people. So why not buy the buildings as opposed to, you know, rent them? And over time, the real estate's going to become more expensive, is my belief. So there you go. Working on the rail lines. Yeah, good gig. So Hugo asks, hey Jack, in the process of renovating an apartment in Sydney, when finished, do you recommend a desktop valuation or an in-person valuation? That is a very, very good question. That almost calls for another little sexy something. Any more paper? Probably good to tell Katie to get some more of this shit, huh? Fuck yeah. Paper on. All right, so if anyone watches my content, Joel is the great man that makes it all, and he's just sitting very patiently behind there. So give him a shout out, because he's a good man. All right, so what was I doing here? I was doing apartment in Sydney. Yes. So how can I illustrate this for you guys? Maybe I don't need to. So essentially what happens when you go and get a property renovated, you then go and order valuations. Okay, that's how I can illustrate it. So let's say these are the lenders: ANZ, CBA, NAB, Macquarie, Westpac, Bank West. Who's another main lender? That's enough. Okay, so here's the thing that a lot of people don't understand about valuations. Is this is your house here, or let's assume this is your apartment. Okay, you can order 2 valuations from each one of these lenders, and every single one of them will be different. I guarantee it. Every single one of them. So ANZ, you can do in person, desktop. CBA, in person, desktop. NAB, in person, desktop. You get the point. So you can have 2 valuations with every single bank, okay? And every single one of them are going to value your property likely at a different value. So here's the process that we run. We do a renovation. The first thing that we do is we go and order desktop valuations from all of the lenders before we do in-person valuations. Because sometimes you'll get a really good desktop valuation. Okay, this is a big hack. So you go and order desktop valuations through ANZ, CBA, NAB, Macquarie, Westpac, all of them. Okay, I'm assuming 80% loan to value ratio on this as well. So order desktops. If you get a really good desktop valuation, and when I say really good, like if you think the market value is 1.3 and you get a desktop at 1.35, that's a really good valuation. Do not go and order an in-person valuation. Use the desktop. Okay? If you get shit desktop valuations, then go through and order in-person valuations. Now, when the valuer comes to the property, make sure you are prepared with all of the comparable sales. Now, the comparable sales need to be settled sales, not properties that have sold and not settled yet. So settled sales, ideally they're in the last 3 months, so in the last sort of 90 days. And ideally, you handpick good comparable sales. Because believe it or not, we see this all the time. So what happens when you order a valuation is ANZ will tender it out. So they go, hey, we need a valuation done at John's place. They will push that out to, say, 10 valuation firms. It'll be like CBRE, it might be Preston Rowe Patterson, it might be, there's so many different ones. So they push them out, and then essentially one valuation company picks it up, and then they go and do the valuation. So one valuation company does it, let's say it's CBRE, they come and value your property. There's a good chance that CBRE valuer is not even a local. They don't even live locally. They don't even know the market. All they know is they look on real estate domain or whatever their portals are that they use, RP data and stuff. And they go, oh yeah, this property looks like this, we're going to value it. And I can assure you most valuers will value your property down. They will not try and value it up. Desktop valuations first, then in-person valuations. When the in-person valuers come, make sure you are prepared with your comparable sales, how much you spend on the property, and obviously they need to be settled sales. And order all of these banks, right? Because I can assure you, like we've had instances. I had an instance personally recently where NAB valued the property, which is we ended up using NAB in the end. 3.15 is what they value one of our properties at, which allowed me to pull out 500,000 in equity. ANZ valued it at fucking 2.7 or something. CBA valued it at 2.9. So if I only ordered one valuation with one bank because I was, that was the bank that I used, I would have left hundreds of thousands on the table. And then you expedite that out, 5, 10, 15, 20 properties that you might own. There's millions of dollars difference, right? So anyway, that's my valuation tick. Desktops first with every lender. If you get a really good desktop, use it. Even if there is a renovated property, use it. Don't get an in-person one. If they're not great, get the in-person. Make sure you're prepared when they come though. Okay? Also ask them, oh, you live locally? Nah, I live in Bankstown. Awesome, man. That's great. There you go. Cool. Yeah, fuck yeah. Ryan gave you a shout out. You, Joel. You're a good man. Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you, Ryan.
Hi, Jack. What's your thoughts on joint purchase of IP with a sibling to share mortgage and risk? I think it's good. I think the most important thing is having everyone that goes in with the right intentions, right? So, like, here is Rose. Rose is here. That's Rose. Rose looks very pretty. She's got nice hair. There she is. This is Rose's brother, Thorn. You like that? That's a little... So there's Rose, right? They want to go buy property. Whoa. Okay, bang. They're all in. They go 50%. It looks like low risk. All right, Rose is here. Thorn is here. Now what happens is we go 10 years down the track and Thorn goes, Rose, I know I said I was going to buy this property and hold it with you for 20 years, but I found myself a partner. Okay, and we want to buy our own home, and we can't buy our own home if we own this property together, so I'm going to sell it. And Rose goes, well, I don't want to sell it, Thorn. I want to keep the property because it's a great property, all right? And then that's when the issues happen. Okay, Rose doesn't have enough money to buy Thorn out or serviceability. Thorn wants to sell it, but Rose doesn't want to sell it because Rose then might be able to get back into the marketplace. So the most important thing is before you go into the transaction, you get a very, very simple heads of agreement, contract, whatever you want to call it, through a lawyer that says, if this happens, this is the outcome. If that happens, this is the outcome. If this happens, that is the outcome. I don't care if it's your sibling, your fucking long lost cousin, whatever it is, anyone you go into a deal with, agree the terms up front, okay? Because I can assure you, this is not for when times are good, this is when times are bad, okay? And no one wants them to be bad, but 99% of the time they turn out not that great. Okay, so that is what I would say. It's a great thing to do, but have the difficult conversations up front and then go into it. I've been through it. I've had a business partner, no shareholder agreement, all that type of stuff. Not ideal. So there you go. There's Jack's share. Rose and Thorn. There you go. All right, what do we got here? Is it good to buy? Is this a good buy? P&I or interest only? Commercial prop 650k. Asking tenant pays outgoing. Strong tenant. Sounds like it. Sounds like it for sure. All right, here we go. Thoughts on converting garage into rumpus, multiple multi-purpose room, and adding carport from an ROI perspective? Maybe. I mean, it'll give you more internal living area. I'd probably get it approved, whether it be through like a complying development. Yeah, so that's what I would do. What would I buy with 1 mil, or where would I buy with 1 mil? Well, I can tell you where we are buying for $1 million. We're buying in the Central Coast of New South Wales. We're buying in Newcastle. We're buying in Brisbane for $1 million. You'll get within sort of 15 to 20 k's of the city. We're buying in the Gold Coast. You are really scraping in for $1 million on the Gold Coast now. And we're buying some stuff in Victoria, but it's generally when clients want to be in Victoria versus our sort of guidance. Danzy3. I have $1 million cash and can borrow 400,000 from the bank. Should I buy a property for $1 million or push up to 1.35? I don't have any property yet. So, Dan's. This is a good one for a lease stock example. Okay, I'm not saying you should go and do a lease stock example, but it's good you should know about it. So, if you have $1 million in cash, like you said, okay, cash, and you only have $400,000 in borrowing capacity, your $1 million is buying the majority of the property and you're getting $400,000 from the bank. Not that great, right? Because the great thing about property is the leverage component of it. Now, if we go down here, there is this thing called a lease stock loan. And what a lease stock loan does is a lease stock loan allows you to buy a property within a structure. Let's say it's a proprietary limited company. Okay? You buy a property in here, it's generally a commercial asset, and instead of the bank looking at you as the individual to service the debt, they just simply look at the rental income that the asset is going to generate to work out the serviceability. Now let's assume that we can use that $1 million to go and buy a property for $2.5 million. Okay? The $2.5 million, we put down a 30% deposit, so we use $750,000 of this $1 million worth of cash. We have $250 left over for stamp duty costs and a little buffer. Now the banks will generally, so if we say $2.5 million in here, 2.5 million, and let's say we get a 6.5% rental yield on that, the banks will allow you to put in $750 of cash, and they will lend to you 1.75 million. 1.75 mil in there, which then means you've gotten, you said 400 grand from the bank. You've gotten, what is that? That is like almost, that's 4 times more lending. You got 4 times would be 1.6 million. You get 1.75 million, and you put in 750 of your cash and bought a $2.5 million property versus a $1.4 million property. So you've essentially gotten a property value worth $1.1 million more, and you've used a little bit less cash. So in scenarios like you're in, which is like obviously not a huge amount of income because you can only borrow 400 grand, which is fine. Income is probably important to you as well. Like if you have a property that pays you, that's a good thing. Like this property here at a 70% LVR. So let's assume we're paying, on our debt here, we've got 175. We're paying 6% interest on that. 60 grand, what is that? 30 is 90 plus, let's say we're paying 100,000 in interest per annum. This is rough numbers. Okay, 100,000 in interest, and we're also going to assume, like in that example that someone said, the the tenant is paying all of the outgoing. So we just got interest cost at 6% interest only. And the property at 2.5 million is bringing us, well, pretty sure I've gotten like, what's the thing called where you don't know how to write? What's it called? Like you can't read and write?
Dyslexia.
Dyslexia, yeah. Like I'm fucking useless now at writing. There you go. 2.5 million, bringing us 6.5% in yield, which means 6.5% per million is 65,000. So it's 65, 135. Half of 65 is 32.5. So that's virtually bringing us in 195k in income, which means the difference between our costs of 100,000 and our income is 195k. We've got $95,000 of income that property is generating us per annum. Now, obviously there's vacancy periods in there. There's bloody all these things that, you know, you've obviously got to work out. But this is a great example for someone that's in that position. $1 million of cash, can only get 400k borrowing. Not ideal, likely to be resi. If you use a lease stock loan, they'll just use the income that the property generates. Should be able to get somewhere between 60 and 70% as a loan to value ratio. Put in 750, borrow 1.75. The 1.75 is going to cost us roughly 6% interest only. That's 100 grand of interest, but it's going to be bringing us 6.5% as a net yield, 195 in income. Bob's your uncle, Mort is your aunt. There you go. Bob and Mort, great people. You like that?
They're related to Rose and Thorn.
They are related to Rose and Thorn. There you go. All right. Did Matt Ryder, my question, what do you bench? To be honest, bro, I honestly don't reckon I'll be able to bench 80 kilos. I run a lot. So, yeah. My legs are likely stronger than my arms currently, but that's okay. That's okay. I can fucking run a long way. So ask me that question. 450k, 100k income, no rent, 29-year-old, quickest way to get to 10 mil net worth. What exactly would I do? I would go and make a fuckload more money because $100,000 of income is definitely not going to get you to $10 million worth of net worth, just to be super blunt. To get to $10 million of net worth, you need to have an income that reflects that. So work out how you can grow from 100 to 500,000 of income. Let me give you a little secret, Baz. Matt Ryder, the guy above you, no, he knows how to sell shit. All right, so he'll be able to sort you out. Learn from him on how to sell. Go to his YouTube channel, learn how to sell, and then you'll sell and make lots of cash, and then you'll get to 10 mil net worth. Alrighty, so that is good. All right, I'm tired. I gotta go for dinner soon.
We can wrap up if you want. Take a couple more questions.
What have we got here? What would you do wanting to get into property? Would it be better to keep renting and buy an investment or buy an owner-occupier? That's Toner Advisor. Yeah, I would buy the owner-occ and I would rent out the bedrooms. That's what I would do, which is like then you're killing two birds with one stone. Owner-occ getting the benefits of the 5% deposit plus getting the income from renting out the rooms. All right, here we go. Costa, our client Costa. What would you buy in blue chip location? Dual lock that rents well but costs you 150 out of pocket a week, has development potential for duplex but maxes out borrowing capacity in personal name. My friend, structuring, that's why it's so important. We'll help you with that. So you've got cash, so you're the perfect person to look at the right structures. I'm late to property, 40, 200k cash on 250k with the wife, 2 kids, rent vest or owner-occupier. So the way that I would work that out, I can't tell you what to do because I don't know your situation, how much it costs to rent there. But like, go and have a look at. I'm assuming you're renting now. If you've only got cash, 250k cash, 200k cash. Oh yeah. So go and look at like your property that you currently rent and go, what would this cost us to buy? Let's assume it's $1.5 million. $1.5 million. We'd have to borrow. If you got 250k of cash, you'd have to borrow, 90% of that amount. What's the mortgage going to cost us? Blah blah blah. What are we renting that same property for? Probably half or maybe even a quarter of what it's going to cost you to own. And then you go and invest, right? Or if the numbers don't look all that much different between owning and investing, then you might choose to be an owner occupier. But you want to look at the numbers and not get emotional. So Twyla, g'day. Do you prefer to fly first class when going on holidays? Yeah, of course. You'll unlikely find Jack in economy, that's for sure. But I'm flying to Bali with the team and I'm in economy because I'm a good guy. Hendo, I'm chasing work, brother. Send me an email, jack@henderson.com.au. Tell me what you do and what work you're chasing. Renting Rose Bay, $900 a week. Yeah, that property in Rose Bay at $900 a week is probably worth $1.5 million, I would assume.
You've got an actual question from Matt Ryder.
Matt Ryder, ask me a question. Fuck yeah. What do you say? My actual question with the new 5% scheme, what do you see the 5 to 10 mil range over the next 2 years? Well, it doesn't affect that range because the the price caps cap it. So the $5 to $10 million range, obviously is a segment of the market which is generally being bought by people that are not impacted by things like income or inflation and stuff like that. So I think it'll do well. I mean, there's been a huge amount of high-end sales, well and truly above $10 million. That segment of the market's really, really strong. So your place in Kensington, my friend, will be totally fine. You'll make a lot of money. There's been some big sales in Kenzo recently, actually. So you'll do well. But the 5% scheme won't affect that segment of the market. All right, I got one more question in me and then I'm out. Jack, thoughts on buying in Canberra? First home buyer, need a temporary move from Brisbane from work, at least 2 years. Sure, I mean, Canberra's done quite well. There are some rules and different things in Canberra that you got to be aware of, so do some research on that, but long term you do well. 1 mil SMS pre-approved. Very hard to find a property, especially dual lock in the Hunter Centre Coast or Maitland. Where would you buy with 1 mil SMSF? I would buy there. We'll find you one. If you can't find one yourself, I assure you, we'll buy them all the time. And last one, I'm 25 and own 2 investment properties in a family trust with low yield in Victoria. They are both 650 metres squared and have room to add a granny flat on the back for dual lock. Any downsides or things to watch out? The downsides is they cost money, obviously, so you've got to pay the money to go and put the dual locks on them. Owning property in trusts in Victoria is expensive from a land tax point of view, unfortunately. But that's really it. I mean, no other downsides. You would only do it though if you're going to hold those properties for a minimum of another 10 years. Otherwise, the ROI won't be there. So there you go. All right. Well, look, Joel. I think that went okay. First one, bit of paper, probably some efficiencies we can create, but it can only go up from here. All right, folks. Hope that was valuable. I'm going to go and have dinner. So God bless you all. Please be good to your mothers and put your socks on before your shoes, as my father always says. Ciao for now. How do I get out of this?